Hello, beautiful boss babes. Are you ready to chase life with Kelly? Well, I'm your host, Kelly Chase, and I'm so excited you're here. We are going to talk about all things love, dating, relationships, money mindset. We're going to dive deep into self-love, worthiness. I am going to bring on some incredibly empowering guests. We're going to have fun, we're going to laugh, and perhaps we're even going to shed some tears together. I am here to empower you, inspire you, and motivate you to create the life you crave. I am so excited for today's episode. Let's dive in. Hi, babes. Welcome back to the show. I am diving straight into money mindset during this episode today. You may not know this, but money mindset has been one of the greatest transformation spaces, expansion pieces in my life over the last 5 years. And the way that it is shown to connect me to my self-worth and the way that I feel worthy or lack thereof in my own personal space. So it's been such an integral part of my health journey, really, because financial health, I tell you guys sometimes, the financial health of everything, really does affect so many areas of our life. And today we have an amazing special guest with us who is going to help us learn more about money mindset and diving into the self-worth piece of everything. So I want to welcome to the show, Kyra Yang. She is a hypnotherapist for entrepreneurs who are looking to scale their business to 7 to 8 figures. But don't let that confuse you. Just because that may not be you does not mean that this stuff was not going to apply, because it does. So without further ado, hello. Thank you and welcome to the show.
Hi, Kelly. I'm super excited to be here and thank you for an amazing intro. That was awesome.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm so excited. Kyra reached out to me a handful of times trying to chase me down and to be a guest on my podcast. And I'm so glad that she just kept following up. I was like, oh my gosh, she's going to think I don't want her to be a guest, but I did. I was just inundated with so much stuff that I couldn't respond appropriately. But anyways, we locked it in and here we are. And I'm so excited to do this with you. You're actually going to be my 101st podcast episode. So yay.
So exciting. Also, congratulations. Such a milestone.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
Oh, yeah, thanks. I'm super, super grateful that I have this. I know when I'm doing it and I'm interviewing and I'm on it, I love it. I love talking to everyone. I love learning. I love being able to have a platform to help others, have their breakthroughs or their moments of oh, wow, their breakthroughs.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just love that. So anyways, but okay. So I want to know how you got started into this. Can you tell me actually your story, as to, how you became a hypnotherapist and how you made money mindset, more of your passion area?
Yeah, absolutely. So this takes me back to 2019. And I was completely, let's call it asleep, not conscious of anything outside of my so-called perfect life, in quotations. Married, had 2 dogs, had the stable 9 to 5 that paid me really well, benefits, flexible schedule, all the things that I was, taught that were amazing. I should want those things, but I was still really miserable. I kept feeling like there had to be something more. I was deeply insecure. I just was I am not a happy person. And so the first leap was starting an F45 with one of my best friends. We were let's just start a business. Let's just quit these crappy jobs and let's just do something. And we did that. But unfortunately, it coincided with the pandemic. So we invested everything that we had. And then we went into pretty much in Toronto, a 17-month lockdown. So that point, I was I got to do something. And what ended up happening was that I listened to this manifestation podcast. And at the time I was this is not real. This cannot be real. But there's so many people on this, maybe it has to be real. And I signed up for a workshop and I started to feel better. Like I started to feel more confident. I was having a lot of breakthroughs, connection to childhood. And then I started manifesting things, right? And then I was like, this is really interesting. And the whole time I thought I was just journaling and doing, meditations. But what I was actually doing every single day was self-hypnosis. And so I then recognized that I met like a few friends. And then through that community, I then found a friend who was a life coach. And in my mind, I was like, ew, life coach. Like, who wants to be a life coach? They're so annoying, right? And, she was like, actually, I see a hypnotherapist. And I was like, hold the phone. This is a job. Like, this is an actual job. And it was like, almost like instantaneously, I knew right away that was what I was meant to be doing with the rest of my life. And so it was like, all of a sudden I was like, all right, find the certification, do the thing. And then I got certified, opened my business like a few months later. And then from there, it just kind of evolved. I started off as like a generalist. I was like helping people with phobias and fears and, quitting smoking, and then moved on to like confidence coaching because I was like, I realized that people could overcome anxiety with this. And I was like, oh, this is amazing because I used to be so insecure about everything, like people pleaser, codependent, all of the things. And then it moved into business coaching. But then people started coming to me for money mindset. Like, it wasn't even something I was advertising, but people kept knocking on my door. And I was like, oh, perhaps I'll go down the money mindset road. And it was really interesting because I grew up with immigrant parents who obviously did a great job, fantastic people. But we all have our money stories, which really reflect our behavior current day. Like, for example, grew up, save everything, never put debt on credit card. Like, it's the end of the world. Never go into debt. Just be comfortable. Don't have too much, right? Don't be too greedy. Just be comfortable. Get a job with benefits, get a job that, close to like 6 figures, like 6 figures is amazing. And so that's what I created. Right. And I was so fearful of debt, and, all of these things are productive, like save your money and have a retirement, but it was all rooted in fear, right? Or shame or guilt, right? And those 3 are the primary emotions, which we'll dive into a little bit later today, around money, fear, shame, and guilt. So when I also, of course, doing this work simultaneously, hiring the coaches and like going through this journey and building my practice, I started, of course, doing money mindset work because I was like, what are all these rules that I've created? And when I started this business as well, I think I put down like 60 or 70K on credit card because I had put everything into my initial business. I had nothing. I was broke. And, but I had the belief that I was going to make it happen. Right. So I was just like, all right, like, who cares? Like, I'm going to pay this back anyways. And, if I had stuck to the idea of like credit card debt will end my life, I'll be on the streets, I would have never done it. Right. And we'll talk about also like how to leverage money within what you have, right? Because we have all these conceived notions sometimes about like, it matters where it comes from. We make some money good and some money bad, and it's all just money at the end of the day. Right. So that's how it ended up. And then it evolved into, which we'll talk about today, the 2 kinds of money blocks that I see. One is like the one you'll typically more see like in the coaching space or on Instagram with like money affirmations and like, what were your money stories? But the second type that I commonly see in the entrepreneurs I work with scaling to the 7 and 8 figures, and you'll still experience this when you're scaling to 6, or, even if you are, this will apply to relationships. This will apply to your promotion, any area in life where you could have more happiness. There's something called an upper limit block, which I like to call the obstacles to more money. Right. So one is like a core money block, your relationship with money, your behaviors around money. Then we look at the upper limit blocks, which are the roadblocks to more money. And both I actually wrote 2 really in-depth articles in my newsletter recently. It's a free newsletter. I do like a Saturday morning training. So if you like diving into deeper mindset work, that's available too. And I actually gave tips on how to start navigating both before we even get started in the hypnosis. So those are the 2 blocks that everyone needs to know about.
I love that. Yeah. It's funny. You were saying that, you got into the business coaching, but people were coming to you for the money mindset. And I think that it just kind of goes hand in hand, because granted, yes, I've personally done that, but, through some business coaching that I've offered as well, that's where I always like find myself, because, you know, people are going to have the stories around like how they price things.
Yes.
And so it's like, oh, well, you know, I don't want it to be too high because no one's going to be able to afford it. I'm like, well, there's people out there that are buying super expensive cars. Do you think the car dealership is like, oh, no one's going to be able to buy it? No, there's people out there with the money that can buy the things.
Yes, many people. And we forget that, you know, through the internet, we have access to like billions of people. Like
Right.
there are definitely like a handful or more than that will be willing to pay for your prices and services. And some people may see your prices and think they're actually too cheap, that it can't possibly be that good at that rate.
Right. That's
right.
So
But
true.
as you said, our money mindset will come in to implicate sales, marketing, like all areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
But especially around the sales, where it's like how you price yourself, how you deliver in sales calls. You know, I know some of the previous clients I've worked with, even in large contract negotiations, like big brand expansions, or even just like one-to-one coaching clients, you know, they are in their head about the price the entire call.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it's all that they're thinking about. And it's like, well, we're missing the whole mark of like being present with the client who, you know, what do they need? Like, how are we going to help them? Because if we give them a solution, then they're more likely to buy, because we're going to actually listen to what their needs and provide them a delivery of what they're going to get.
Exactly.
But if we're in our heads about the price the whole time, can they afford it? Am I a greedy person for like asking for so much? Or, you know, is this a bad thing? Or, you know, maybe I'll get rejected. I should just go for less. And then we start to self-sabotage because of our own money mindset.
Yeah.
And nothing's actually happening.
Right.
Nothing's
Right.
happened yet.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. It's so true. I have definitely in the past been on a sales call, and like, I am like going in there and confident about my delivery, confident about the cost and everything. And then at the very end,
Yes.
I like, the words that come out of my mouth is like $500 less or something. And I was like, what did I just do?
Yes. And it's like the investment, right? We're like, here's the investment. But if that's too much, we can do like this payment plan. And if that doesn't work, then like there's this, and it's like, what you have to do is just say the price
And be done with it.
and pause.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right. But we start to spiral because a part of our mind is starting to go into survival mode.
Right.
Where they're going to say no, we're going to be rejected, my business is going to fail, I'm not going to have any money, I'm going to be on the street. Like literally what I like to call Armageddon mind starts to happen. And really it's all just a no, and there will be more opportunities, which is really like leaning into the abundance mindset. There is always more opportunity. In reality, when you think about money in your life, maybe there's been temporary times where it's been tight, but there's always more money. Like if my business were to burn down tomorrow, both of them, I could go to Starbucks and get a job.
Right.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with the job at Starbucks. Like it's just, there are many options. Money's always available, but we think very narrowly about how it's going to happen for us. So we're very limited in what we can create. And this will apply in many ways, right? But we go into survival mode, and then we start to self-sabotage and panic. And it's almost like this, like you said, you're like, why did I just say that?
Right.
It's like knee-jerk reaction where it's like you almost didn't have control, even though you are the one that said it, right? So these are the patterns that we want to look at, because most of our, like, let's call it subconscious patterns, it's the 95% of our minds. And you're like, okay, what does that even mean, right? The 5% of our mind is like conscious thinking, everyday thinking, rational decision-making, analytical mind, right? The 95% of our mind is the part that we can really only access through hypnosis. And that part, it holds our beliefs, which then determine, you know, how we feel, right? So like, if we're like, we're amazing, I believe I can do anything, I'm the prettiest person in the world, how we feel is going to be amazing, right? And then our behaviors and our actions in the world are also going to be very confident, very forward, very, you know, in a certain trajectory. But if we're in the baseline thinking, yeah, like I'm going to be successful, but in the background, we're like, oh no, like, I'm not good enough. Like there's so many people that are further along, better than me. People are already saying this already exists. Like, you know, the negative self-talk. The only time we don't get up to do something anytime is when we feel bad, when we're hungover, when we're sick, when we're in a breakup, we're having a bad day. It's the time of the month. Like, forget it, I'm in bed, you know, like it's not. Right. And that emotional state will impact our ability to take action, right? And action is the result that's going to create our reality. So we really want to look at, everything is a downstream of our subconscious mind, because that's our belief system, right? Just like how for the longest time I thought, oh my God, making $100,000 a year would be like the lottery.
Right.
And then, in my second year of business, I had a month where I did 80K in sales, right? So it's like, you think, and then I'm like, oh, now 100K feels very small. And like 100K is not a small amount of money, but it's, what you believe is available for you, right?
Right.
And what you believe is available in the world. Those are the two factors that are going to determine really what you're going to create.
So how does one, like, for example, if someone was feeling challenged with both of those things, how do you, like, what types of questions are you asking them to help them expand and change that narrative?
Yeah. So when we're looking at money specifically, so one of the things that, like, again, the newsletter article on this from 2 weeks ago that I wrote, go look at it. Like, it's going to dive way deep, but initially, right off the top of my head right now, the fastest, easiest way to start looking at your money mindset is like, look at the stories from childhood, right? What was commonly said? Were rich people greedy, or like was money the root of all evil, or money doesn't grow on trees? Like, the idea that money is essentially bad or hard to come by, or you'll become a bad person if you have more money. Like, look at those rich people. Like, was that the dialogue? Or even my clients that are wealthy, right? Make sure you don't show people that you have too much money. They're going to want something from you, right? People only like you because you have money, right? And then it works the other way, right? So look at the primary stories that were, realistically, if you can remember, primarily from the ages of 0 to 7, right? Because that's going to shape how you spend, how you invest, how you save, how you create, right? When I thought 100K was the be all end all, I didn't actually believe I could do it. So I actually never applied for jobs that had the salary of 100K. I could have had all the qualifications, and I saw the number. I was like, oh, I'm never going to get that next.
Yeah.
Right. But why? Like, because I learned that. Right. And so this is what we need to look at, because, or, for example, my parents were very frivolous, right? And that's cool, right? Good for them. Like, they did really well for themselves. Came here with $500, like ended up in like, upper middle class, did really well. But I used to get really, like, I used to like buy things and feel like kind of like fear and like guilt, like, and shame. Like, and I would go home and like hide stuff. And I was just like buying a pair of pants. Right. But why do we feel this way? Or like, you get like go to the grocery store and you like, it's like a huge bill. And I used to feel like this like sticker shock. Like, I would get scared. And I was like, why is this scary? It's just some numbers on the screen for some healthy food that I'm going to eat, which is going to nourish my body. But we just are so dialed for scarcity because there is this conditioning that it's going to run out. This is how a lot of people feel. This is even in the clients that I see 7, 8 figures, they still feel like it's not enough. Right? They feel this like, oh, like it's going to run out, like it's not enough, because in childhood, that's how it felt, even though the reality says something different.
Right.
Right. So look at the primary stories from childhood, right? And also just look at your daily life. Like, where does money feel fearful or shameful or guilty? Like, are you hiding things from like your partner or friends? Like, do you feel like extreme like emotions when you like have to split things or like cover something? Or do you feel like overly generous, right? Like, there's a lot of ways in which this is going to show up. It's going to align your everyday behaviors, because again, your behaviors stem from your identity, and that lives in your subconscious, right? It's just like these automatic programs. The second thing we want to look at with upper limits is really looking at like your next level. Say it's like the promotion, right? Or like the secure partner, or, that 50K, 100K month, the 7 or 8 figure milestone. When you think about that, there's usually 3 things that are happening. So number one, the biggest thing when we're moving towards more money or more success, right? There's a fear of success, which is, connected to fear of failure, and the fear of visibility. The reason we don't move towards those is because there's usually like a self-worth issue. There is a sacrifice component, or it threatens our baseline safety. So subconsciously, with, for example, safety, right? The idea of leaving people behind. If we have clients that are paying a certain price point and we're like, we got to raise the prices now. Oh my God, what if they all leave? What if they can't afford it? I'm a bad person, right? Like this is all a reflection of it meaning something about you that's like not nice, like not a positive, right? And entrepreneurship in general, or like if you get to another level of wealth and like your family thought like, rich people were like, look at those people. There was a lot of judgment. You don't want to be isolated. This is like threatening a baseline core need, like a Maslow hierarchy, right? It's puts you in survival mode. And as an entrepreneur, if you're on that journey, it's already a very isolating journey. It's very lonely. And so the idea of even creating more separation, you're like subconsciously like, no, thanks, right? The sacrifice piece, success is expensive, right? It can feel very costly. Relationships, barely there. You barely see your friends and family. You're working all the time. You're burned out. You're overwhelmed. You're anxious. You're at max capacity. And you're like, well, logically, if I create more success, and this is not true necessarily, but logically, if I create more success, then I'm going to have more of this. It's not worth it. My mental health sucks. My health sucks. My relationships suck. I'm not happy. Right. So like, it's not even worth it. And this is like the point in which a lot of entrepreneurs like almost quit.
Yeah.
I've had one of my clients, 7-figure business owner. She was like, came to me. She's like, this is kind of the last straw. Like I'm about to just like throw in the towel. Wow. And now it's completely turned around, like over 7 figures of funding and brand new contracts and expansions and all the things. But her mindset needed a makeover, and it stemmed from deep subconscious, which was the next piece, self-worth, right? And this is what we were alluding to at the beginning. You're only going to create what you think you're worthy of. And this is not like a charge what you're worth. Like, no, this is like a deep, deep feeling of what you believe you can have, you will create, and what you believe you deserve, you will keep. So sometimes people have like not a worth issue, but they have a deserving issue where they'll make a lot of money, but they can't seem to hold on to it because they make it and they're like, I did it. And then they're like, oh, wait, like, am I the person? Like, I'm not one of these people. I can't be one of those people. Like, oh no. And then they self-sabotage and like somehow get rid of it. Like I've had people lose, and that's why they start with me. Some of these people lose their first multi-six, lose their first 7 figures of money. And they're like, what happened? Right. And they're just like, I didn't feel worthy like of being this person. Like I'm not this person. I feel like a fraud. Right. Because their identity is still dialed to that little 4-year-old that was like, maybe in trauma or like a traumatic childhood, or the big thing is our perfectionists, right? The high performers. When we think about worth, we're going to go down the rabbit hole here of our mindsets, because when you think about growing up, we learned that, being successful, right? Having the nice things, the car, the clothes, the whatever, right? Whatever it was. When you come in first, when you get straight A's, when you get into Harvard, when you like whatever it is, right? There's this like pinnacle of success that society deems is like the right thing, right? And we learned that when we achieve those things, we're loved and we're celebrated and we're seen, like our caregivers, our loved ones, our partners, like whatever stage of life it is. But when we're thinking really about childhood, teachers, right? Everyone's like, yeah, you did it, right? Celebration. And we're like, oh my God, yes, right? This is like our little inner child. And then, when we fail, especially like I can attest this, growing up in a Korean immigrant family, very strict. If I failed, if I got a B, God forbid, I came last, or I got rejected by a boy or whatever, right? Whatever it is for you, but just some nuance of failure, it was painful, right? Yeah. You might have been shown fear, like I got yelled at. You might have been shown shame, like you're not as good as others, or you should be better, or, there might be some guilt, like, and this all then associates this program of failure with pain and like discomfort, and that something's wrong with you, right?
Yeah.
And so when we look at that, we then learn, right? Okay, so like failure is like avoid at all costs. Like Mayday, Mayday, Armageddon, do not go there, right? We don't want to go there. It's terrible, right? But we learn that, oh, okay, so like if I do all of these things to be perfect, right? And I achieve, then I get love. So then we learn that love is actually conditional, right? Like we can only get it sometimes and only when we're perfect, right? And so our worth is placed on other people validating us, right? So we only get it if someone else says it was good enough, or that we achieved a certain standard that they said was good enough, because we don't determine that. Only our outside world does. Certain achievements, certain standards, certain income milestones, living in certain parts of the world, right? And it's not true, but that's what we believe. So we go through life, people pleasing, having like unrealistic standards, right? Where we have such intense standards, we can't even meet them. And then we're so hard on ourselves for not meeting them, right? And it creates this like very crippling energy where you can't do anything. You get taken out. It's very hard to make good decisions. You're in analysis paralysis. You're overthinking everything. And really success, especially as you're moving towards like, multi 6, 7, 8 figures, the speed and quality of your decisions is everything, right? But if your emotions take you out, and that's going to be a byproduct of your beliefs, it's going to be really hard to get out of your own way. And, this is the big thing where when we can understand that we will not be happy when we achieve the X income milestone, the X perfect partner that doesn't exist. It's all going to be work. Whatever it is, the house on Malibu, like whatever you want to call it, right? You're not going to be happy then. And which is why like many of the entrepreneurs I'm working with at that level, they're all unhappy. That's why we start working together. They're like, I have everything. Why am I so unhappy? Right. And it's because their worth is still being defined by their external circumstance, right? By the success, by the money. So they keep chasing more, but it never seems to like plug the hole of that void. Because, deep down as children, we learn that we're only good if we're being validated. And when we're being perfect and, trying to be perfect 100% of the time is impossible, right? So we have to decide, we can have it now, right? And when we can decide that we are worthy now, not, oh, I'll be happy when, because then we place conditions again, because we're only meant to be happy when we have reached X milestone. I'll stop working so hard and killing myself when I get to this milestone. Right. But no, you have to start dismantling that now, because you can have it now. And when you decide you can have it now, right? You're worthy right now of creating whatever it is that you want in business, in your relationships, in your career, for personal wellness, right? Then you'll start to create it. But it's kind of this like catch-22 where you have to understand it's not a later conditional. It's I choose now, and now I have the empowerment to now go ahead and make it happen.
I choose. I love that.
We always choose.
Yeah. So, okay. So thank you for sharing all that. I was like, yes, I'm just like nodding my head over here like, yes. So agree with all of that. And it's interesting. Like I said, I've been studying this stuff for a while. So I'm like, I know what you're saying, while also recognizing where I am. I want to say like maybe still following the stories. Somewhat too, and I'm like, okay, like when you're speaking about the like just wanting to be seen and like achieving and people pleasing and all of that, it's like there's a part of me that I know that I'm like in that right now, because of all the things I'm doing, and I'm like, I just want to not do anything just for like 30 days, like off Instagram, take a break from my podcast, not work, like do all the things. Like I just need like my body, nervous system, everything just needs to chill.
Yes. And so, yes, this is, when you're in, it's always a progression, right? It's always a journey. But when you're in it, it can feel a lot because a lot is being unraveled. Your mindset is being rewired. Your emotional regulation is also reaching a new equilibrium, a new baseline, I like to call it. Actually, you should look into, I have like a free download. It's just like reduce anxiety, right? It actually is like a 5-minute video. I think it's like a 2-minute exercise, and it actually allows you to reduce anxiety and then like shift into like pretty clear focus, because it activates the parasympathetic nervous system.
Yeah, we need
so
that.
when you need that, when you're kind of like, I need to take a chill pill, right? This is the perfect thing. And it's a free resource. You can use it at any point, any time. And this is one of the conversations of, or one of the outcomes that are really important, is like sustainability, right? Like it feels like sometimes it's so much, because, you know, as a busy professional that you are and an entrepreneur, there's always stuff to do.
Yeah, always.
Right. Same for me, right? Like everyone is busy, and it feels like as we get older, we just get busier and busier, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so having this piece where we can just close down, I like to call it, actually my partner says, you know, it's kind of like having a computer and you have like 40 million tabs open. It just like makes the computer really slow. Like you're not actively looking at it. And he was like, and instead of like minimizing the worry tab, we just need to like close the worry tab. And I was like, that's right. And so we have all of this stuff in the background where we're like, we're cool, we're good, we're on top of it. But all of this is like leaking energy slowly. And we only have so much capacity in a day. So for example, you know, we were talking about, I really want to link back to the self-worth piece, because, you know, a lot of the times when we say like, what does it mean to like have it now, right? We hear about like permission slips and like, you know, do the thing now. And, you know, it's really, I find one of the easiest ways to put it is like feeling like an imposter, right? Like feeling like I can't be the person who has a happy relationship. I can't be the person making $1 million. Like, do I really think that people are going to be listening to me? There's already like, you know, what we said, people with more experience, people who are charging more, people who've been doing this longer, people are already saying this, people are already like, you know, launching that product, like, you know, and then we just don't take action. Right? Like we get in that analysis paralysis. And what we have to look at is when we're like doubting ourselves and feeling like, oh, like, could that be me? Right? The good news is that when you're thinking about that, is that, yes, that's one side of things where we're like, we feel like an imposter and a fraud. The other side of that is that this is like a very good sign that there's like a huge growth coming, right? Because of course, you've never done it before. It's going to feel scary. Number one, yay. Okay. Something new, right? If you want something else, you got to create something new. We can't keep doing the same thing and expecting something different to happen with our money, with our relationships, right? And then also it's like, okay. And because it's new, it's going to be hard. That's okay. It's going to suck. You're probably going to suck. It's totally fine. And you just get those reps in, right? And that builds confidence. And, you know, like you do anything 10, 20 times, you feel a lot easier. I'm sure the first podcast episode feels a lot different than now, you know, and that goes the same for charging. For your services, the first time you say like the highest price point you've ever said, you're going to be like crapping your pants. You're like, oh my God. And you're going to be in your head being like, can I deliver the value? Are they going to pay me? Is this like even worth their money? Oh no, I feel so bad. Like all of the things. Right. And, you got to just be like, it's okay. It's just some words. It's just some numbers. I'm building a business. It's something new and it's a skill. And if we get rejected, that's okay. It doesn't mean anything. We just, again, collect the data, what went well, what didn't, and we move on, right? We got to make data-driven decisions for ourselves, right? Like when we can have that emotional intelligence, that's the big thing. When we can really separate our emotions, it doesn't mean like we're bypassing or, you know, avoiding. It's just that we've done the work so that we can separate the emotion where we don't feel that knee-jerk reaction, that trigger where you're like, why did I say that? What happened? And we can just look at things like very clearly, because that's the place in which you are always going to make the best decisions for yourself, whether it's in your personal life, for your business, for your career, for your relationships.
I love that. So how do you coach your clients in the sense of, obviously, yes, like going through all the stories and everything, but is there like a tool that you give them for when they're about to do a sales call, like how they get grounded and not have that knee-jerk reaction, although they may want to, because maybe they haven't fully learned, integrated, or embodied your teachings just yet. But so they're like saying like, yeah, I get it, I understand, but like on the call, they're like shitting their pants, like you said, and so because obviously that energy exchange is happening too.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, how do they show up feeling more grounded so that they can save the cost of whatever and be okay with it?
Yeah. So one thing that we do in session is, of course, we do hypnosis, which is not a circus trick. It's not clock watch or like making you cluck like a chicken. It's just when we allow your mind to access the brainwave states, which allow for greater levels of neuroplasticity. So we find root events of why you feel scarcity, right? Why you feel like it's going to run out or it's not going to work, or, why you are so afraid of being rejected. Like rejection is one of the biggest things because, again, what we talked about, it's very painful, even though consciously you're like, it's okay. Like if I get rejected, I just try again. But, deep down, like the fear is like, oh my God, it's paralyzing, right? Whether we're consciously aware of it or not. So we don't take action. So that's one of the things we reprogram in session together. The other thing was what I mentioned to you earlier, this tool, it's called the learning tool. It's not exactly called that, but I'm going to call it the learning tool, where we, again, activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the learning state. That's what it's called. And so, it's a short download, and it's completely free. And we reduce the anxiety because this is what happens. When we look at the brain, we have, or in our day, we get inundated with, and I'm going to answer your question. We're going to loop back, a billion pieces of information every second, right? But every second we can only process 128. So like we're missing a lot. Mm-hmm. Us having this conversation, it takes about 40 bits. The minute there's 2 other people in the room, we're maxed out, right? The rest of our reality actually becomes invisible. Okay. So, when we are frantically looking for keys and they're like right in front of us and we can't find it.
Yeah.
Right? This is one of those times where like, okay, so like say we're not in a threesome having a conversation, but I'm filled with money stress. I'm filled with anxiety. I'm overwhelmed. Your brain is trying to deal with that because it's like, mayday, mayday, we're not safe. And so literally we become invisible to opportunities that are right in front of us, right? When sometimes it's like, it could be right in front of it and you miss it.
Right.
That's what happens. And through, eliminating those negative states and increasing your baseline, this allows so much more space for you to see new opportunities. And we need to be able to see them to create them. And through this process, a lot of my clients, I know one of my clients, she actually unlocked like almost like $1 million in 30 days.
Wow.
Because she just finally took action and because she wasn't in such a state of anxiety and panic and overwhelm every single day in her head about how she's not worth this company. And, and it's all just in her mind, right? And it doesn't make it less important or not, those are very real lived experiences. But again, like the mind can limit you in so many ways. So when we look at sales calls, that tool is going to be great because we want to, again, increase our baseline, reduce the anxiety so that we're in a state of calm, right? Mm-hmm. And we're not panicking, right? Even though we're like, we're cool. It's like, no, we're not cool. Right. And we got to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. And then once we're in there, and you can use that for negotiations, any sort of like difficult conversation, even if you're just feeling anxious and you're having a spiral, right? Like you got bad feedback and you're having a spiral, use it, right? Then we can increase our baseline. We're calm, focused. From a strategic standpoint, the best thing to do, the mindset I always like to think about is service, right? Like we're not like trying, like if we're in the mindset of scarcity where we're like, it's a limited time offer. If I don't get this, I don't know when the next one's coming, or I have to get this because I need to hit X like goals. Right. That energy is never going to work. When you're like on a date and someone's like so desperate or so pushy and you're like, they don't even have to really be doing anything, but you can feel it. And you're like, I want to go home.
Yeah.
And so the same thing happens when someone's like, you're there and you're like, pushing them energetically from the other side, they can feel it. It doesn't feel good. So, from a strategic standpoint and like with the mindset in mind, it's really like number one, service. Like, how am I helping them? If I actually listen to them and listen to what their problems are, connect it with how I actually help people, you're probably very good at helping people do exactly what you do. If there was no money on the table, you go like, yeah, I could do this, like my eyes closed, right? Okay, connect with how you help them. And then provide the solution. You say, and in your mind, their conversation is really like, okay, you have this problem, I have the solution. Do you want to fix it?
Right.
That's it. People love that. Nobody wants to be sold to, right? I can go to my favorite store in Toronto, Aritzia. I don't want to be sold to. The minute they're like, can I help you? Can I put that away? I'm like, I'm going to shop online.
Right.
But if I go in and I pick all the stuff I want, and then they're like helping me in the chair, like, that looks so great. I'm like, I'll buy it all. Like people love to spend their money, but not when they feel sold to, even if it's something they need. Right. So, hey, they're here on the call. They came and sought you out. They want help, but they're scared. Right. Yeah. And so also recognizing they're scared. So, you put out and slow, you got to go slow through this process. Right. And then I have the solution. Do you want to fix it? Here's the investment. And then let them speak.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Oh, I love that. That's so good. Yeah, I love that. You're right. I mean, we do everything. It's like, as you were saying, like fear, you said fear, guilt, and shame are usually like the three emotions that are tied to
money.
Money. And I feel like, in so many ways in everything, like our relationships too, and as you mentioned, like rejection, obviously that is very much tied in with that. With I know you had mentioned, those, the upper limits and the obstacles.
Yes.
So can you expand on that a little bit more? I know that was something, I want to say something that I have been recognizing has been popping up for me in the sense of I'm aware of those stories that people tell themselves, oh, like if I'm more successful than someone, then, like I have to leave them behind, or, you're sacrificing things. And I have felt like, and let's put it this way, I have felt like maybe like in a romantic space, more or less, like I am here and I want the person to rise with me in a sense, right? But they're not necessarily, because we're all on our own journeys, right, in life. And so I feel like there's obviously a correlation within the money side of things as well. Like how we feel about money and how we behave with money is very similar to how we think and behave with relationships as well. So, because it's all a relationship at the end of the day.
That's right.
But it's been interesting for me because I'm like, oh my gosh, I pursued this whole like spiritual journey 5 years ago. And the way that I approached it, I did kind of like a complete like 180. And I've shared this many times that I'm like, I traded going out and binge drinking with my friends for staying in on Friday and Saturday nights, reading personal development books. And like, I just changed so much. And granted, like, yes, the reality is that I still have my friends and like the ones that are there for me that are still in my life, that kind of thing. But there was a lot of sacrifice, although I was intentionally sacrificing things and like saying more of yes to myself, no to other people and opportunities. But I know that it was almost like I did it so aggressively that there were times where I was like, I'm lonely. Like people aren't reaching out to me anymore because I'm not, because I've told them no 5 times that I'm not going to hang out. So why would they call me to ask me to go do anything now? And so it got very lonely. So I feel like I created like a fear because now I'm like, okay. And granted, I have been consciously telling myself like, well, Kelly, that was then, this is now. You have the tools, you have the knowledge. That's not going to happen because you already have the lessons, but it's still like a fear that's popping up for me that, oh, I'm on a different wavelength and I have to like leave people behind now. And like that fear of like letting go is just so sad and painful. And I'm like, how can I keep them in my life? I'm like, how can I keep those people in my life? But then I'm like, okay, Kelly, but that's you trying to control a situation too. So then I'm just like, it's just a ball of awareness. And I'm like, oh, why do I have to have so much awareness?
Yeah. So a lot of things that you shared are really, really important. And here's the thing, right? So like you said, you're like, I consciously know, but it keeps coming up, right? Yeah. And it's got like, my favorite example is, I'm sure like at some point, whether it's current or in past, maybe you've experienced yourself, but like the friend who's in the toxic relationship, and they always come to you over the same kind of fight. You give them the same advice. She's like, I gotta go. And you're like, yeah, you gotta go. She never leaves. Right? We know what to do, but for some reason we're not doing it. Right. And that's a big sign I notice as well. Like if you're feeling like the next level, you're like, I know what to do, but I'm not doing it. You're hitting an upper limit, right? You're hitting an upper limit of what you believe is like the limit of what you can have, what you believe is, your limit of happiness, let's call it. And so, because you just think that's it, right? It's kind of creating this plateau. And so, when we're thinking about, I know what to do, but I'm not doing it, it's because consciously we know what to do, right? But subconsciously, there's something that's holding us back, right? And that is the 95% of our mind. Think about 5% versus 95, who's going to win?
Right. Absolutely.
And so, and again, it's not logical, right? So, if you are someone who's like, I have so much awareness, but like, and I know what to do, and I have all the things, and I've done like the cold baths and the journaling and the affirmations. The next step is subconscious hypnotic work, working with like NLP, neuroscience techniques, like all the things that are really going to change the way your mind thinks versus getting advice, right? People hear advice all the time. And yes, you can still change your mind that way. Long, slow, repetitive process, right? Like I have clients who have been in therapy for like literally a decade. And I'm like, I know what my problem is, but I can't seem to shift it. Right. So we need to go into the subconscious, which we change the belief, right? We're dissociating and detaching the old painful experience of what you experienced when you were like 6 that you maybe don't remember. Like for example, for the first 29 years of my life, I was very deeply insecure. And I thought that I was like never as pretty as my friends. I actually just thought I was like kind of ugly. Right. And I don't feel that way now, but it all came from a childhood memory from when I was 6, where a kid on the playground was like, well, ew, you're just like an ugly Chinese girl. And so my whole life, I was like, I always like wanted to like be like my Caucasian girlfriends, and like always felt like inferior compared to them, and like felt very ashamed of my culture, and like all because of one little comment when I was 6. Like, and I didn't even make the connection until I started doing the subconscious repressed work. But the only reasons why we don't move forward, it's kind of like something's holding you back, is because it's a subconscious pattern that's literally been going on for 20, 30, 40 years unconsciously. Like we have been like repeating these patterns over and over again. So you'll notice, like if you have the same patterns of relationships, same patterns with money, same patterns with anything in your life, that's a subconscious program. So it's the feeling of, I know what to do, but for some reason I'm not doing it. That's the intro towards doing some, hypnotic work, hypnosis, hypnotherapy, however you want to call it, because we have to change the neural pathways where what once used to be painful is now neutralized. Like, for example, rejection. I don't feel anything when I get rejected. It's a little like, it's not like I'm like in like a robot, but like obviously it sucks, right? But like, I'm just like, oh, okay, cool. Like, it's fine. Because I'm not associating with that younger version of me that was like, oh my God, this is the worst thing in the world. And as you were saying, like, I know that I need to like let go of the control, right? To like move forward. And it's because, with upper limits, subconsciously or consciously, the perceived sacrifice right now, the way that we see our next level, whether even though it's like the thing that we want, the secure partner who's always like in growth and doing the transformation work with me, or or like loves to watch like crappy reality TV together, or like whatever, right? Or like having the 7 or 8 figure business, or even starting your business, or going for that promotion that feels so out of left field, right? All of these things, the perceived consequence to you is greater than the potential benefits, so you won't move. Like, we don't move towards pain. We don't move towards anything that we don't think is going to work out for us. Because even though we're unhappy here, it's what we know, and we love comfort. It feels safe, even though it's the toxic relationship, even though we're in the like crappy 9 to 5 that we freaking hate and like want to get a pay raise and they rejected and they said no. And it's like, but we feel stuck because deep down, subconsciously, it's connected to our self-worth. Again, like, we don't truly believe that we can have what we want.
Right.
We're like, this is it. This is what I get. And even though, like, for the longest time, I was like, I'm worthy of the relationship, the secure partner, but I still dated the avoidant men because that was a reflection of my father. And subconsciously, I'm like, avoidance means love, even though logically I'm like, no, it doesn't.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But it was like, then it would react that trigger where I was like, the fireworks and the trauma, and this is amazing. And again, this is not logical. It's what your subconscious wants, and is number one job is to keep you safe. So it's like, oh, that's safe. It's familiar. Let's go there. Right. So we got to rewire your success programs, the visibility programs, the money programs, so that they're definitely in alignment with what you want to create. Because when we change the belief, right, the easiest way to think about it is like, becoming the fit person, right? And there's many ways to do this, but let's say in the most basic way possible. What does a fit person do? They eat relatively healthy, clean diet. Perhaps they take supplements. They go to the gym, whether that's like strength training or going for walks or like whatever it is, like being active. And they're pretty like consistent about it. So how do you become the fit person? You don't just think, I want to become the fit person. It happens overnight. No, you start doing those habits, those activities. And then 30 days later, you are the fit person, right? Quote unquote. Right. So, but you have an identity now of like, oh, I'm the person that goes to the gym every day. I'm the person that now eats like really whole, clean foods. I'm the person that, whatever it is, the habits that they have. So the same thing that has to happen with you for success or relationships, where you have the identity where you are looking for creating those opportunities that are going to be favorable for you. Right. I am the person that shows up on social media every day because I have an online business. I am the person that charges, $5,000-$10,000 a month because that's what I charge. Right. And if I get a no once, that doesn't mean that my price is wrong. Right. Maybe I'll look at the data and maybe I need a new market. Maybe I need to work on my sales process or my marketing funnel. Right. There's all kinds of ways, but these are the things that we want to look at.
Yeah. I love that. That was good. I'm like, yep, that's it.
Yeah. So for you, the question is like, what's the perceived consequence of getting what you want? Right. That's what you want to start looking at, because they're not rational.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Because there's definitely the wants, the dreams, the visions, the goals that I have that are just that. They're like, oh my God, this would bring so much peace into my life. This would bring happiness and things like that. Granted, yeah, I get it. I have to be in that state now myself and get myself there. And that was something I actually did a therapy session recently, and we did some inner child work. And
perfect.
Yes, the inner child. I mean, I do do inner child work on a regular basis, but obviously when you're in such an intense environment, my therapist is like wildly insane. It's not like just talk therapy. She does some, I don't even know what she does. She just hits the nail on the head every single time though. But
amazing.
She's very powerful and very intense. And, there were a lot of things that came up, and she was like, you need to cultivate that relationship with that little girl inside of you, like stronger than you've been doing it, because you're like, I told her that a word of mine that came up for me a few months ago during another healing session with another coach was consistency. Consistent. And she was like, you are wanting someone to show up consistently in your life, or you want a business that's bringing in consistent income all the time, right? She's like, where are you not being consistent with yourself? And I was like, I know. She's like, go play more, like be or nurture her. Like, I think that I was like, well, I've probably just been like so caught up in the doing
yeah,
that I have, like, I've been dishonoring some of my boundaries and not really showing up for her. So I had to just kind of have a little wave of awareness and bring myself back to earth and, okay, Cal, like, let's put self in the actions of cultivating what we're looking for. And
100%.
Yeah. So,
and that's all it is, right?
Yeah.
It's the day in, it's not sexy. Like success is not that sexy. Like you get like the big momentous moments,
right.
but there's like 1,000 dark night of the souls, right? Like, and I'm not saying that it's like a terrible journey. It's totally fine. It's what you make it. And again, like the mindset, the nervous system regulation, all that's going to be very important to have good mental health and hygiene during this, because it is a very challenging journey, because not only is it non-linear and not guaranteed, but it's like the biggest personal development journey of your life.
Yeah.
You're constantly having to look at yourself time and time again.
That's so true. Yeah. But yeah, it's, the consequence. I think it's just, it is that pain of like letting go. I think that that's the biggest thing. I think that that's been a problem of mine, or a story of mine, for a very long time. It's like, oh, I have to let go. Oh, I have to let go. I have to let go. And it's just hard, and it sucks, and it hurts, but do I really have to let go? What is letting go going to bring me? It's going to create the space for the things I want to come in. But it's like, oh, but I want this. But
yes.
It's not serving me.
Yes. And so you got to think about, again, like, what is it, like, this is your self-worth. Like, what is it that, you're really settling for, that you is out there and that you really want and deserve. And we can only create space for it, of course, by letting go. But again, the even deeper nuance is like, the story is that you're always letting go, right? And that doesn't make it true or not true. Like, you are actively doing it, but it's the light in which you see the letting go over time, just building like a new connection where it's like, oh, every time I let, like, I think my mantra is always like, if it's not this, it's something better or more aligned, right? So like, I used to hear from like partners like, oh, if it's not you, like, it'll never be somebody better. And I'm like, yeah, maybe not better, right? Like, it could be better, it could not be better, but it's going to be someone that's better suited for you, better aligned, where you're both more on the same page and on the same journey. So it is actually going to be better, right? But, that's again, like, leaning into like beyond money, the scarcity mindset, where it's like, we deep down think that there isn't more, right? Like, we think that there is not more money, more people, right? Like, I love, in Toronto, people are like, there's no one to date. And like, I think that too, right? Maybe this is
everybody says that in every town, I swear.
Yeah. I mean, I'm dating someone in Miami. I took a chance and I took different actions, right? Like, I opened a dating app. I flew over to like have a date with somebody. Like, I just did something different and it worked out, right?
Wow,
but, we're like, oh, there's no one to date in Toronto. But the reality is like, okay, that might be the case, but at the same time, it's like, what is it that I can control?
Right.
And we have to just take ownership of that. And also, like, if you don't like it, like, create a different reality. And again, like, looking at, is Toronto the only place? No, there's 1 billion people in this world. There's so many opportunities. That sales call didn't go well, or that big negotiation didn't go well, or that promotion didn't happen. There are many, many more. Maybe not at the company, change companies, right? Like, and it's not saying like jump ship every time, but again, it's like redialing the conversation in our mind about like, so what if you did let this person go? Oh, there's like 1 million other people you could date. Cool.
Right.
And we think, what if we can't find that connection again? It's like, perhaps, nothing will be like that connection, but what if you could also find something more fulfilling, more secure, more intentional, more, meeting your needs, right? And again, it's just reframing like the abundance of like opportunities everywhere, because like, there's always more money, there's always more people. And it doesn't mean that people are disposable or it's not important. It's just like, you're not stuck, right? And the universe always is going to test you. Like, it's going to be like, okay, you say you want more. I'm going to give you the thing that it's almost perfect. It's super shiny. And you choose this or choose yourself, because you know that you want something more, and knowing that it's available and it will come. It always does. And you'll notice, I'm sure in your life always seems to get better.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's so funny too, because like like you were kind of saying like at the very beginning about just like manifesting things. And it's like, I am so I'm aware to those things that happen, like that some people may be like, oh, it was just luck, or that was coincidence, or something like that. Like, no, like,
no, there's no such thing as coincidence.
I did this and this happened. Like, it was like the other day, there was and it's hard, dating life a little bit, but like, there was a situation I was like, okay, it's probably just like not really serving me. And literally like within the next 24 hours, I received like a text message from someone that I met recently and like looking to like hang out and stuff. And I was like, of course he just messaged me. Of course that happened, because maybe God's like, okay, you want this. I'm showing you this. Here it is.
Yes. And the universe will drop you little breadcrumbs when you don't take the full leap. But you're taking the step in the right direction. It'll drop you a breadcrumb and it'll be like evidence, because our brains want evidence, right? We want evidence that more is possible, that the thing that we want is available. And, it always does that at very opportune times when we say no and we choose ourselves, or we choose something more for ourselves that is greater than our current environment, right? That's the only way we can have something more in any area of our life. And then you just keep following those breadcrumbs, and because, you move and the universe will also move with you. And yeah, it's a great co-creation. I love it.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. Okay. I feel like I have like so many questions, but one more. You had mentioned earlier, kind of like when you were saying about, when this happens, then. So in that regard, because obviously, being a coach myself, I hear those types of excuses too. So how do you move someone to shift their mindset to help them understand, no, we can choose to do this now, like, and working them through that excuse that they feel that, oh, well, I don't have time to do that, or I don't have enough money to do that, or, oh, well, my kids are out for the summer for school, so I won't be able to do this until September. And it's like, okay, understand, but what's going to change in September?
Exactly. Right. So typically I find that the excuse that they give me is the exact thing that they have to shift. So it's like, if they're like, I don't have time, or I don't have money, or I don't have whatever it is, right? That is the one thing they have to shift and think about and see and take action differently, because they're going to keep using that excuse, right? And then the same circle is going to happen over and over again, right? So, I think we talked about this a little bit earlier about money, right? People think like debt is bad, or if you get money from like your job or like a promotion or your business, it's really good. Money from the parents, oh, it's kind of shameful. Like, I don't want to look like I'm supported, or like if my partner is like really wealthy, like I'm an independent woman, right? All these stories. Okay. And that influences where we take money from and how we make decisions with money. And so when, again, money EQ, emotional intelligence around money, it's really important, because the best thing that anyone can do for themselves is look at money, as we know, and you have probably heard many, many times, money is a completely neutral resource. Right? Like it's not good or bad. Yes, it gives us more freedoms and liberties and luxuries, but like innately itself, like it's just dirty paper. Okay. Right. Or like some numbers on a screen. Like it's not actually, doesn't have any emotions. Right. But it makes people feel very emotional. And so when we can look at all the money that we have in our lives currently, whether that's, a line of credit, whether that's a credit card, whether that's money from family inheritance, whether that's money from our jobs or our side hustle or whatever, and we look at everything we have, the best thing to start breaking out of money mindset, like old money mindset, is looking at like leveraging everything that you have. Right. It's kind of like the universe is giving you like this kind of bank account. And we have to kind of associate the meanings of like, oh, well, that's a line of credit. So like, I'm never going to use that because I'll never get out of debt. If I thought the same thing, I would have never started my business on $70,000 worth of credit cards.
Right.
Right. And my first year alone, over 6 figures. Second year, over multiple 6 figures. Right. So it's like, but if I had stayed with that and the scarcity and like, I'll never get out, nothing's going to change.
Right.
Right. And that's why like middle class always kind of stay middle class. Like people in poverty generally stay in poverty, and the rich just keep getting richer because they keep leveraging the money they have. Everything. And like millionaires, a lot of them, almost every millionaire that I know, multi-millionaire, people with $100,000, okay, net worth, all in debt. Right? Because they're using other people's money to get richer.
Right.
Right. And it's like, we have to begin to stop this like fear of letting go, right? In all areas, but like money too, because we like have this fear like it's never going to come back.
Right.
It's like, there's always more money. Money's being printed every single day. Every second of the day, people are buying and selling. Like this is a truth, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, when we start to look at the excuses that we get, you know, and like, well, I'll have this when, the thing is like that when is probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like that's the reality. It's a very hard truth, but it's like, okay, like we can wait, but we might be in the same position here. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe in 3 months you'll get it. But what if this goes on for 6 or 12 or 2 years, 3 years? Like I had one of my earliest clients, like as a business coach, this is like earlier on. She had been thinking about becoming an interior designer for 10 years.
Wow.
Just like sitting on this dream, like feeling like, I know, it's what I'm meant to do. Never took action.
Wow.
And she was like, I literally can't die and not do this. Like I have to do this.
Yeah.
Right? And she's like, and my mindset is the only thing getting in the way. Right. And that's the whole reason they're talking to you as well. Like, it's like, you have to be able to think greater than your current environment. You're going to do something scary, but also, especially when it comes to money, I find, or time, there's like a fire under your ass.
Yeah.
You're going to go all freaking in and put everything you got because you're on the line, right? And I'm not saying that you have to put yourself in that position, but every time I make a really big investment or like a new strategist or another hypnotherapist, like whatever it is that I'm doing for myself, it's like, I go big because I want to make myself go in all the way and show up for myself 100%. Right. Because it's like rebuilding trust with ourselves. Right. That's like the big thing. Or it's like the consistency, right? Or whatever it is. It's like we say we're going to do something, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just continuing to build those building blocks again, because we don't trust ourselves. We're so used to being validated by others, and that being the stamp of approval, and that being the we're okay and we're safe, right? That's the whole thing. Like we want to feel safe, and we have to find safety within ourselves, because as you said, like you spoke about earlier, like all of this is internal, right? Like this isn't, we learned that we need outside validation and affirmation and the nice things to, be like, we did it, right? It's like this huge proving cycle, but it's a huge energetic leak because we're never going to fill the void. And even when you have all those things, I was speaking to somebody a month ago, like $10 million revenue business, actually my recent client last week, over $20 million revenue generating business, miserable. And he's like, and it feels like it's never enough money. And I feel all this pressure to sustain and all the responsibility and blah, 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 like, all of those things. And the thing is, like, he's like, I know it has to be something internal now because I have everything. So the reality is that when you want the success or when you want the money or some sort of like thing that needs to happen, right? Like you said, you just called it out. You're going to call them out. It's an excuse. But number two, it's like, what are we looking for? We're looking for an emotion, right? We're looking to feel like success or like happy or proud or like safe, right? The reality is that, like, every milestone that you're wanting, you want to feel an emotion. Those emotions are available right now. Right. And so we have to be able to sit in those emotions and access those emotions, because you're only really seeking an emotional experience. So when we can anchor in that new baseline, whether it's through inner child work, whether it's through hypnotherapy, whatever modality you're using, when we can re-regulate our nervous system to feel safe, that's when we can also, really in tandem with the mindset work, be like, oh, yeah, well, I can be happy now while moving towards more. I can feel like, this is enough. And really, that's what it is when we think about, like, it doesn't feel enough. Only when I get there, like all of these conditions, it's because we don't feel enough. We don't feel that we trust ourselves. We don't feel like we can do it. right? Like that's the root of it. Because if you believe that you trusted yourself and that you were good enough and that you could do it, you just do it.
Right. You just do it.
Regardless of the temporary discomfort. And that's the other thing, like getting over the instinct. There's so many things, the instant gratification, right? Like we're so used to like working 40 hours and getting the paycheck, but it doesn't work like that. Right. This is a non-linear journey, right? Whether it's healing or business or whatever it is, like we're unraveling things that we've been thinking and doing for like decades, right? So, we have to give the people the opportunity, our clients, to step into it's kind of like you don't know how good it is until you're on the other side of the transformation. But like the biggest thing for them is like the one thing that's holding them back is like the one reason they must move forward.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay. I hear you. Dang it. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I know. I hear you loud and clear. Yes. I totally agree. And I understand full. Everybody listening, you got that? You got it. Yeah. You got to move.
It's okay. We're all like, oh, damn. Okay.
Dang it. Oh my gosh. Okay. That was awesome. Thank you. That was amazing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Is there anything else that maybe I didn't ask you to talk about that you want to share with us? Or any last thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we could talk forever.
I know. It's a lot. It's a lot. I mean,
it's a lot. But yeah, just the number one thing is, I think the easiest way to look at it is, what do you feel like you're settling for in your life right now? And you can take inventory, whether it's like a jot note or something in like your business, in like your relationships, in your career, in your personal life, in your health, and then start to look at like, why?
Yeah.
Right. Like who says that this is the limit?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And most of the time it's ourselves, or it could be like our mom or our dad, like someone's voice comes up. Right. And look at that limitation that we're holding for ourselves, because like that mindset limitation is the only reason you don't have more money, and it's not that simple. Like we have to remove the limitation, which then brings the opportunity to go create it. Right. Of course, there's an action involved. Or like having the relationship that we want. Oh, because we always date the bad boys. Well, why don't we date the boring guy for once and see how that goes? Right. Because they're not actually boring. They're just not activating your trauma.
Yeah. There we
go. But like, again, like we have to like, and there's a very fine line there, right? Where like, sometimes they are actually just boring. Okay.
Right.
But some people are just innately, they feel very safe. Like my partner and I, he has more of like an anxious avoidant, like an insecure or disorganized attachment, which I used to have. I'm a very secure partner. So like, I can always see the strategies happening. Right. But for me, I've done the work. So it's like around this particular area. So I can see it. Right. And, it doesn't activate me, but for him, for a few months, he was like, I really like this girl, but like, she doesn't really like need anything from me. And she's not like super codependent, and like but then it would like make him feel insecure because he was used to like saving the girl all the time. Right. And he was just like, I don't know, like, is this it? But we have to be open, right, to something new, because we're asking for something new, but we want to run back to the old.
Yeah.
Right. We want this like beautiful new duvet, but we want like the stinky old blanket still for some reason.
Totally.
Like that's not a good example, but like, what I mean. But yeah, that's kind of one of those things where like take inventory, look at like what limitation, like just trust like the first thought that comes to mind, like, oh, you're not pretty enough, or like, you're not smart enough, like you're dumb, or like whatever. And like, let it come like non-judgmentally. Like we'll feel kind of bad for a minute. We're like, what's that? Right. Yeah. But those are the beliefs that we want to start looking at, because when you actually look at them, you're going to be like, that's not actually true.
Yeah.
Right? But we carry it around with us. And it's like, it's this like terrible sack of garbage that we carry around in our mind that runs on its own. And it makes us not go after the things that we want. And then on the flip side, on the top of the page, I would say like right at the bottom, right? Like, what is it that you do really want?
Right.
This is the secure partner who text me every day. Like I used to be the cool girl. I was like, I don't need to be texted every day. But deep down, I was like so anxious.
You're like, but I want to.
But I want it. Like, do they still like me? Like, are they there? Right? Like,
yeah,
that's okay. Right. But write what it is that you want. Cause like often we feel like we're too much or like, that's not going to happen. Right. Like we create these stories too. So like write what you want in those areas. And then I would say like the most empowering thing that we can do from there without diving into the deeper subconscious work is like, just create one action step that moves you towards that. That's different. That's exciting. That's scary, right? That's the thing that you want to do. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. You don't have to fly to Miami, a different country to go on a date with somebody, but like do something different because we need to do something different. We need to think, those goals are outside of our current reality. And then we need to then take action outside of our current reality to move towards it, right? It's kind of this progression.
Yeah. So true. That's so good. I love that.
Yay.
I love that. It's so funny. I read like the Daily Stoic and then 365 Tao every morning. And literally one of the pages the other day was about do the opposite today. Like,
yes,
to create obviously your different reality and create a different result. It was like, just give it a try. Just try doing the opposite of like everything today and see what happens.
Yeah. And if it doesn't work out once, it doesn't mean it's not working.
Right. Yeah,
right?
exactly. Mm-hmm.
Over and over again, we try. And then we collect data after a while, being like, okay, maybe it really wasn't working. But,
right.
Maybe after the 20th time you meet the love of your life or you sign the dream client or whatever it is, right? Like I always like to say, go out there and get 100 no's. You probably won't get to 100.
Right. That's so true. Mm-hmm. It's so true. Oh, this has been so good. Okay. So where can everybody find you? And if you want to plug your downloads and everything again, go for it.
Yeah, definitely. The easiest place is stan.store/mindset currency. Okay. That's the best place to find me. Any of the socials, it's just I am Kyra Yang, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Like, where am I? Okay. And then, but everything is at stan.store/mindset currency. You can find all the downloads there. And if you're interested in working together, an application to do that as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. This has been wonderful. Thank
you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. If you loved this episode, please download, share, rate, and review. If you are ready to step into that next level version of you and grow your business and bank account, it's time to unleash your goddess magic and chase life with Kelly. You can start this epic expansion journey by diving into the Goddess Magic course bundle found at chaselifetogether.com. Please connect with me on Instagram at chaselifewithkelly. Join the Chase Life with Kelly Facebook community and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Till next time, create the life you crave, babe, and chase life with Kelly.